are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here. On this Friday, June 7th, we have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, apologize for the issues with the camera. As I was setting up, was kind of doing its when it glitches out. So then I fixed it right before we got on, so I was like, all right, we should be good. And then once the intro was done playing, that was not the case, and you saw the Spider-Verse going on. But we should be good to go. So let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. Again, apologize for that. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about the Chiefs re-signing Mecole Hardman, so I'll get into that, bringing him back into the wide receiver room there. And we'll talk about its impact of this. We'll talk about the impact of this move as well. Then in the second part of the show, I will continue my schedule breakdowns. Today we will be doing the San Francisco 49ers schedule. So I'll give you my early win-loss predictions for them. Then in the third part of the show, we'll kind of break down the Vikings depth chart, kind of what's been going on so far in OTAs. And kind of similar to what I talked about, I think, last week with Caleb Williams and how he was struggling. We'll talk about J.J.McCarthy, and he's kind of, I think he's third on the depth chart right now. And we'll talk about just, whether that's a big deal or not. And then it's kind of going to be the same stance I have on that as I did with Caleb Williams struggling. So we'll get into that. Then in the fourth part of the show, we'll talk about Dan Campbell, some of his recent comments, just about the Lions, expectations for them. And then kind of a similar topic with Mike McDaniel of the Miami Dolphins and how they're approaching this season, wanting to end that playoff drought for them. So that's the rundown for the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Mecole Hardman. So he is coming back to the Chiefs once again on a one-year deal. And I don't have the specifics of the contracts. Sorry about that. Just got an alert on my laptop. But, so a one-year contract. And, of course, last year he was with the Jets. And then he was traded back to the Chiefs. And he ended up making the biggest play in the Super Bowl last year. And that was the game-winning touchdown in overtime as time was expiring in the first overtime. I was kind of hoping we were going to see the first double overtime Super Bowl, but that was not the case. The Chiefs ended it, and so they brought him back. And I mean, it's not like he was lighting it up for the Chiefs, but this is a guy that knows the system, and I think with some of the question marks that they have, particularly with Rashee Rice and what's going to end up happening with him, they brought back a guy that, like I said, knows the system, and again, just another receiver to add to that room. And it's funny because looking at his Jets stats from last year, he had one reception for 6 yards. That was it. And I think that was that in the first game of the season? Might have been. But either way, that was those were his Jets stats. But then when he went back to the Chiefs, 14 receptions, 118 yards, no touchdowns. But like I said, had the touchdown in the Super Bowl. Yeah, so the Chiefs are, gearing up for yet another season where they're hopefully looking to, well, for them, they're hoping that they could three-peat. And Mecole Hardman is going to be a part of that, even though I don't think he's going to have a major role. I mean, he might have a bigger role just because of the possibility that Rashee Rice could be suspended, because nothing has happened yet. But if he's not there, Mecole Hardman is going to take on a role. But you still have Xavier Worthy, who they drafted, Marquise Brown, who they brought in, Travis Kelce, of course, and, Isaiah Pacheco running the football. So, the Chiefs still have some other weapons, and Hardman's kind of like that, fourth or fifth option. But with Rashee Rice playing, yeah, then that's even more so. But like I said, he will have a bigger role if Rashee Rice is suspended, which I think is probably going to end up happening. Now, in 4 postseason games, he had 5 catches for 62 yards, including 3 catches for 57 yards in this past Super Bowl. And, of course, had the game-winning touchdown. Well, yeah, the game-winning catch. I don't know if that's, added up from all the other Super Bowls. I mean, but actually, yeah, because I don't remember if he played in the Eagles Super Bowl. But regardless, he had the game-winning catch in the Super Bowl, and yeah, that's really all that matters is that catch, because that's what won them the Super Bowl. So, but with the new kickoff rules, he may also play a significant role in special teams. So we'll see if they end up doing that. But yeah, I mean, it's just another, again, it's a guy that fits the system, that knows the system. Now, I don't expect Mecole Hardman to put up monster stats. I don't think anybody is at this point. But I think that's what the Chiefs originally thought when, they drafted him, because he was looked at as potentially Tyreek Hill's replacement. And it just never shaped out that way. So then he went to the Jets, and you thought, okay, he's going to be with Aaron Rodgers, and, let's see what he does in that offense. And like I just told you, 1 reception for 6 yards. And then he was traded back to the Chiefs. And again, caught the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. That's really all you could take away from him going back to the Chiefs is he had the biggest catch in that game and won them the game. Well, with the help of Patrick Mahomes, obviously getting him the ball. So, but yeah, I mean, in terms of like how impactful it is, I mean, it's another wide receiver, but he's not going to have a major role on this offense. There's other receivers that are going to have bigger roles. And, of course, Travis Kelce, you got him there as well. So I don't really, expect Hardman to have too much of an impact. But, again, if, like I said, if he's returning kicks, that's where he can be impactful. And, with Rashee Rice, we don't really know, how many games he could be getting in terms of a suspension. I don't think that's been made official. Then, Hardman's going to have a slightly bigger role. So we'll keep an eye on it. But, yeah, he's back with the Chiefs, and I think he's, thrilled about that. And, we'll see what kind of season he has. But, I don't expect him to put up monster stats. So, yeah, but the Chiefs did bring him back. So let me know what you guys think about that. And, yeah, now we just got to wait and see what happens with Rashee Rice and his suspension. and then, we go from there. But that's really all I have to say on the situation here. So they bring him back, 1-year deal, Mecole Hardman, and maybe he'll catch another big pass in the Super Bowl if the Chiefs get there. Well, a lot of people are hoping that's not the case. They're hoping the Chiefs don't even get close to the Super Bowl. But yeah, I mean, the way this time has gone with Mahomes and Andy Reid, I mean, I expect them to be back to at least the AFC Championship game. So, I expect them to be there at least. So, we'll see if there's any team that can knock them off. We will see. But, that's pretty much all I have to say on it. I also want to remind you guys again, so today I will be appearing on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast with Manny and also Emran, the host of the GSMC Soccer Podcast. So that will be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So got a couple things to talk about. So make sure, it'll be the first 2 segments of the show. So make sure to tune into that if you want to see me on another show. But I just wanted to throw that in. So we're going to take our first break. Again, let me know what you guys think about Mecole Hardman coming back to the Chiefs. I'm going to take our first break. When we come back, we will continue our schedule breakdowns. We will talk about the 49ers schedule, and I'll give you my early win-loss predictions for them. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to continue our schedule breakdowns. Today we will be doing the San Francisco 49ers. So let's get right into that. And like I've been saying, got to switch around a couple things here. So the 49ers last year, of course, and we just talked about the Chiefs, but 49ers were the team that the Chiefs played, and we will get a Super Bowl rematch, and that'll be in Week 7 in San Francisco. And the 49ers actually, like, looking at their schedule, they got a lot of tough games. But here's the thing. The 49ers are a very good team. And I think despite this tough schedule that they may have, they're going to win a lot of games. So they get things started playing Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. And this could be a very good game, and I hope it is, because I want to see Rodgers, play a full game with the Jets, because we didn't get to see that. And I think it's a game that the Jets can win, but I don't think they will. I think if Rodgers is healthy, I think this game could be close, because the Jets also have a good defense as well. But I would take the 49ers here to win this game. So, but I think it'll be close. Then, Week 2, they take on an old friend, most likely, in Sam Darnold. Now, the Vikings did beat the 49ers last year in Minnesota, and that was on a Monday night, but that was also with Kirk Cousins playing. I think the 49ers will win this game. I think they'll win this game here. So I will give them the win. So they start off 2-0. Now, here's the thing. Last year they split with the Rams. They take on the Rams now in week 3. I think they'll split with the Rams again. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to say they will split. So I don't know which game here I would say they would win or lose. Because last year, I mean, they did split, but that also had to do with they were playing their backups in week 18. So I'm going to say at least one of the games they'll lose. So they're going to split with the Rams. Then they got the Patriots coming in. I'm going to say they win that. Cardinals could be competitive this year. I know I talked about them a little bit yesterday, but I think the 49ers are better. So I'm going to give the Niners the win. Then they take on the Seahawks in Seattle in week 6. Give them a win there. And then this is where the schedule, this is the tough stretch here. So they take on the Chiefs, and I feel like they are due for a loss at this point. I would like to see them, win against the Chiefs, but I think that the Chiefs will win this game, so I'll take the 49ers. And you know what ends up happening now? They come off their first loss against the Chiefs, and then guess who comes in? Well, I mean, you see it on the screen. The Dallas Cowboys, a team that the 49ers really just have not had a problem with at all these last few years. And I think this will be a get-right game for them. So I will say the 49ers get back on track and they win that game. So then they take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa. They played each other last year. Niners won that game. I'm going to say that the 49ers win that game. So I'll give them a win. Then they take on the Seahawks again at home. I'll give them a win there. Now, back-to-back road games. They take on the Packers in Lambeau, and then they take on the Bills the following week. I'm going to say that they lose at least one of these games. I'm going to say they lose to the Packers. I'll say they beat the Bills. But they're going to be tough games. So that's another. So one of those two games they'll lose, but I'll say they'll lose to the Packers. Then they take on the Bears, and I'm curious to see where the Bears will be at this point. What kind of season Caleb Williams is having. I'm going to take the 49ers, though, to win the game. So I'll give them a win. And like I said, I have them splitting with the Rams. Then they take on the Dolphins in Miami. Could be interesting. They played each other a couple years ago in San Francisco, and that was when we were introduced to Brock Purdy because Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt and Purdy got put in, and they won the game. Yeah, it'd be interesting coming over to the East Coast here. I'm going to say the 49ers. I'm going to say the 49ers still win. I'll give them a win. But then they take on the Lions. I'm going to say the Lions upset. Well, I don't know if you could call it an upset, but I think that the Niners are going to be favored in this game. I feel depending on how healthy the teams are. I mean, who knows? Injuries could happen, but I'm going to say that the Lions upset the 49ers here. So I'll give them a loss, and then and then we'll see, what happens if they rest their starters or not. Depending on, depending on seeding and the division, which I think they'll have wrapped up at this point. But, it could come down to seeding, and they might have to play their starters for the full game. So, but I'll give them the win. So let me look at the losses here. So I had them losing to the Rams at least once. I had them losing to the Chiefs, the Packers, and the Lions. So 13-4. Yeah, I mean, look, the 49ers to me are still the favorites in the NFC, and I've said that. I think there's a chance that they could be dethroned because the Packers almost beat them, the Lions almost beat them, and I think the Eagles are going to be better. I think those are the teams that have the best chance to knock them off, at least on the NFC side. And, I think the Rams are going to be good, but they'll be a wild card team. The Bears, I think if they make the playoffs, they're going to be a wild card team. But, yeah, I think the teams that have the best chance to knock them off are the Packers, the Lions, and the Eagles. Sorry, Cowboys fans. I think the Cowboys will be good, but the Cowboys really have not shown me that they can hang with the 49ers. I guess you could look at the playoff games, but in the regular season last year, yeah, that was a beatdown. And I think that could be the case in Week 8. Because, yeah, you go back to the 2021 playoffs, and it was a one-score game. And same thing with the playoff game the following season, when Ezekiel Elliott was the center on the final play. Yeah, that ended up being it was this low-scoring game too. It was like 19-12, I think the final score was. So, but the regular season last year, yeah, that was a tough watch. Because what was the final score? I think it was 38-10 or something. It was not even close. So, but yeah, this stretch for the 49ers here from like week 6 to week 14, week 15. Well, yeah, I know it's from week 6 to I guess week 17. The Cardinals are on the opposite ends of it. But yeah, because you're in Seattle, which a divisional game. Then you got the Chiefs, the Cowboys, Buccaneers, Seahawks again, at Packers, at Bills, possible high-powered Bears offense, then the Rams again, the Dolphins high-powered offense, the Lions. Yeah, it's I would say it's a tough schedule, but the 49ers are very good. So, I expect them to rise to the occasion, and they're going to be fine. They're still going to win a lot of games this year. They got a very good defense, and of course on offense, we know what the playmakers that they have with Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and we'll see how Ricky Pearsall fits into all this. And you got Brock Purdy, who has been a solid quarterback. Whether you think he's, being carried by his playmakers or not, I think he's still a solid quarterback. And, I'm not going to say he's, elite, but I think he's solid. So, I think the 49ers, despite this tough schedule, because even at the beginning of the year, you take on a good Jets defense. You're on the road in Minnesota, which is you lost last year. It's gonna be different because Kirk Cousins is not there now. And then you got the Rams week 3. I think the Rams are gonna be tough, of course, with their offense. So, yeah, it's definitely a tough schedule. The Cardinals are gonna be competitive. I think really the only, I want to say, gimme game on their schedule is the Patriots. I think that one's that's the easiest game on their schedule. Because the Vikings is on the road, and I think they have a good team, and they beat the 49ers last year. But, yeah, it's going to be with Sam Darnold or J.J.McCarthy and not Kirk Cousins. But, yeah, Cardinals are going to be competitive. Rams, of course, I think they're going to be a playoff team. And, I guess the Buccaneers, I think the 49ers should win that. But that's on the road. And, we'll see where the Bears' offense is at in Week 14. Because, if Caleb Williams is playing really well, yeah, that's going to be a tough game. So, but, yeah, so that's my thoughts on the 49ers schedule. Let me know what you guys think, how many games you see them winning. I said 12, 13 wins. I think that's what they'll get. So we're going to before we go to our next break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break, we will break down the Vikings quarterback depth chart. I'll talk about, what's going on so far and whether we should make a big deal out of, some possible J.J.McCarthy struggles. Well, not really possible, but J.J.McCarthy struggles. And, yeah, that's what we will do when we come back from our second break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about the Vikings. I know I mentioned them briefly doing the 49ers schedule, but we'll talk about the Vikings. We'll kind of break down their depth chart, where things are kind of at. So, it's being reported that J.J.McCarthy is, quote, squarely behind Sam Darnold on the Vikings quarterback depth chart. And this is reported by ESPN. He often comes in behind Nick Mullins in the pecking order, supposedly. And, yeah, Sam Darnold has been taking the majority of the first-team reps. Of course, was signed this offseason. A 1-year, $10 million contract. But, yeah, it seems like the Vikings are taking a patient approach with McCarthy's development. Was drafted with the number 10 overall pick in the draft. And he may be seen as a prospect who may need a full year to develop. And he turned only 21 in January. So, yeah, and I think this is the right approach. And that's why I've kind of been saying that, it depends on which prospect you're talking about. Because with Caleb Williams, he is the quarterback one. He's going to start week 1. I think Jaden Daniels is going to start week 1. It seems like J.J.McCarthy, he might fall in that category of they're going to ease him into it. So Sam Darnold is probably going to start week 1. Michael Penix is not. Kirk Cousins is the guy, of course. Well, that's a little bit different because, they paid Kirk Cousins a lot of money, and, he has to start. Michael Penix is going to be waiting until his opportunity arises, which, for Falcons fans, you're kind of hoping that it's once Kirk Cousins' contract is up, because if it's any sooner than that, well, then that means, Kirk Cousins and the Falcons didn't really work out. But, yeah, so Michael Penix is not going to start. Bo Nix, we'll see. That one, it's either him or Jared Stidham is going to start. But we at least know for sure that Caleb Williams, he's going to be the guy week 1. Because with Washington, they got Marcus Mariota there. Maybe Mariota starts. I haven't really looked into it, but I'm leaning towards Jaden Daniels is going to start. Oh, well, also Drake May, too. Forgot about him. It seems like Jacoby Brissett, he could be the starter. Looks like the Patriots are leaning towards starting him. So, but, yeah, then I've seen some things about J.J. McCarthy, and he's struggling, and it's just, like I said with Caleb Williams, it's the same thing. I know you're going to have people that are going to overreact and say, oh, yeah, he's not good, he's not going to be good, but we got to be patient. Because the only way we're going to be able to evaluate these quarterbacks is when they actually take the field and play meaningful games. That's the only way. We're not going to know how good these guys are based off of practice. I mean, we see, I know we saw Caleb Williams. There was a video of him, doing a jump pass. Like, yeah, I mean, it's cool. And, and even with, like, the veterans, like Aaron Rodgers, you see him throwing a no-look pass to Garrett Wilson. Like, yeah, it's cool. But it's practice. We're talking about practice, as Allen Iverson said. We're talking about practice, not a game. Practice. I hope you guys appreciated that basketball reference there. But anyways, it's just, we got to be patient. Because there's always going to be people that are going to overreact over things. So yeah, you might look at this on the surface and be like, wow, J.J.McCarthy's even behind Nick Mullins. They're taking a patient approach. So we got to wait and see. Now, I don't want to say he's going to be fine because, again, I don't know how good he's going to be. And I've said all along that he ended up in a good situation. He did. Because, again, Kevin O'Connell is a good offensive-minded head coach. And the weapons that you have the best receiver in the NFL in Justin Jefferson. You have a good number 2 in Jordan Addison. T.J. Hawkinson, a solid tight end. Aaron Jones, I don't know how long he's going to be with the Vikings. He's only there for 1 year. But still, they have a great supporting cast for this young quarterback when he does eventually take the field. I mean, I don't know how long T.J. Hawkinson's going to be there. Oh, I think, I don't remember. Did they sign him to an extension? I don't know. But Addison's going to be there for a while. Justin Jefferson just got paid, so he's going to be there for a while. So they'll figure it out with running back and tight end. But either way, Vikings got a solid supporting cast for this young quarterback when he does eventually take the field. So yeah, maybe he's not going to be ready. Maybe he does not play at all this year. And I think that's the right approach. Because, let him learn the system, let him sit, and then when he's ready to take over, he'll be prepared. And he's not just thrown into the fire. So, again, this is not something to overreact. If he's struggling and he's, behind Sam Darnold on the depth chart and even Nick Mullins on the depth chart, if that's the case, it's not something to go crazy over. It's not. Because they are taking an approach of, you're going to sit, and then when you're ready to go, when it's your time to take over, you'll be better prepared for it. So, but like I said, I don't know how good he's going to be. I don't. I mean, you hear many different things about him. I could sit here and say, and like with Caleb Williams, yeah, I mean, I think Caleb Williams could be good. But you got to see it. We don't know until they actually take the field and play games and play meaningful games. That's how I look at it. Like Caleb Williams is in a very good situation too with the playmakers that he has. But if he goes out there and doesn't play well, yeah, there's going to be concerns. Just like when J.J.McCarthy eventually takes the field for the Vikings and he's not playing well. I mean, he might get a little bit of a pass just because. I mean, first couple games, yeah, you might get a little bit of a pass. But then it gets to a point where you got to start seeing results. I mean, look at Jordan Love. Jordan Love sat for a while, right? And, he finally gets his opportunity, got off to a good start. Then there was a stretch where he was just not playing well. And it looked like, well, Packers might not have their guy after all. And then what happened? He turned it up. Played really well down the stretch. They made the playoffs, won a playoff game. But, I mean, that was a unique circumstance because Aaron Rodgers was winning back-to-back MVPs. And, yeah, Jordan Love didn't get his opportunity until, his 4th season. Right? Yeah. And he was sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a while. So, yeah, that's different. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, you could look at Bryce Young, too. I mean, his first season. Yeah, that was rough. That was rough. But that was not all his fault. We got to see what he does in year 2. And I know I did the Panthers schedule recently, and I didn't really have them winning a lot of games. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. So, all right, we'll see. But, again, J.J. McCarthy being listed as number 3 on the depth chart, it's not that big of a deal. They're being patient. That's really what how you could look at it, is they're being patient. So I'm not really gonna make a big deal about it. And I know I talked about Jefferson earlier in the week and how, he's gonna be kind of a mentor for him, gonna take him under his wing, and that definitely helps when you have arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL in your corner. That's going to try to help you along as well. So we'll see. I think J.J. McCarthy's in a good situation, but now he's got to go out there and prove it when eventually his name is called upon. So that's my thoughts on it. I mean, it's, again, him being number 3 on the depth chart is not a big deal. So when he starts playing, that's when we're going to evaluate him. And if he's playing well, great. If he's not playing well, for an extended period of time, then there could be some concerns. So that's how I look at it. But let me know what you guys think about the Vikings depth chart. Again, not a big deal. We're very early in J.J. McCarthy's career. Like I said, when he starts playing games, that's when we could truly evaluate him. So we are going to take our third break of the show, and then when we come back, we'll talk about Dan Campbell, some recent comments that he had regarding the NFC Championship game. So that's what we will do when we come back from break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about Dan Campbell, some recent comments that he had regarding the NFC Championship game, and just kind of like, what he's expecting out of the Lions for this upcoming season. Some interesting comments, though, because he did reference Ron Burgundy. So these are the things he had to say. So those are the little things where this is what Dan Campbell said, those are the little things where we can really grow offensively and defensively, like the awareness of who's in, what's the situation. We know what it says on paper, but we can't do the Ron Burgundy. We can't just continue to read off the teleprompter, and that's the next step. This is the next evolution, because that's what San Francisco did to us, quite frankly. They played at a different level. And what else did he have to say? I think just remember what we are playing for, each individual. What do you want? Like, what do you want out of this year? What do you want it to look like when we're sitting here and it's February? Where's your mind? And so think about that, and let's work backwards from there. That'll be the message. And he said, you know what I want? He said, I want the whole enchilada. So that means the Super Bowl. Yeah, kind of funny. He talks about enchiladas and Ron Burgundy. But the one thing I'll say is San Francisco played at a different level to come back. I mean, if you really go back and you watch the game, the 49ers also just like, there was some luck involved, but also they took advantage of some mistakes made by the Lions. Because I think I did watch the highlights recently from that game, and I forgot. I think it was after Brandon Ayuk had that catch that was deflected up in the air and he caught it, and they scored a touchdown. Because I think right after that, I forgot about this. Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled, and the 49ers got the ball back. I forgot about that. And then you had the Lions, they went for it on fourth down, and there were some drops. And, yeah, it just, things unraveled. So I don't know if it's more so that the 49ers played at a higher level. I think it's they just cashed in on, like I said, luck and mistakes by the Lions. But that's what good teams do, is they'll take advantage of mistakes. So, but, yeah, I mean, listen, I think the Lions, they're going to be, once again, a very good team. And I talked about them earlier in the show, how I think, between them, the Packers, the Eagles, I think those are the teams that have the best chances to knock off the 49ers in the NFC. And I even said I think the Lions will upset the 49ers late in the season when they play against them. And that could very well decide who gets home field advantage between those two teams. And I thought the Lions played a great game. Well, I shouldn't say great, a great game because they didn't finish them off. But early on in the NFC Championship game, they were running the football. I mean, they were carving up that 49ers defense. And they were up by a lot. They were up by 17. They should have been playing in the Super Bowl, but they couldn't finish off the Niners. But I don't know if it's because of the 49ers were playing at a different level. I think it's just they cashed in on mistakes. And the Brandon Ayuk catch, that changed the whole complexion of that game. Because everything just went wrong for the Lions and everything went right for the Niners. And Dan Campbell might have been overly aggressive. Maybe you should have taken the points and kicked the field goal when you went for it on fourth down. But, I mean, if it pays off and he gets the first down, because Josh Reynolds, I think, he was the one that had the drops. He makes those catches, Dan Campbell looks like a genius. And then we're probably having a different conversation. But that's not the case. And I know I think I said this, around that loss, but you don't want Dan Campbell to get to that point. I did make the comparison to Brandon Staley, because Brandon Staley, early on in his coaching career with the Chargers, he was constantly going for it on fourth down. And I remember when they won against the Chiefs his first season, that at the second or third week of the regular season, and they were going for it on 4th and 7, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Loved it. I love this. But then it just got to that point where I was like, okay, you got to take the points. I don't want that now. Brandon Staley, him and the Chargers, the furthest they got was the first round of the playoffs. And they lost. They had a 27-0 lead and they blew it. Dan Campbell, he brought his team all the way to the NFC Championship game, and they were on the doorsteps of a Super Bowl appearance. Brandon Staley never got that close. And Dan Campbell, now, Brandon Staley, yeah, the Chargers made the playoffs, but, they missed the playoffs the previous season, and then the season unraveled last year because of a bunch of stuff, including a lot of injuries, too. But, no, for Brandon Staley, he had to go. Dan Campbell, you look at what he's done with the Lions. I mean, it was a possibility that he was going to lose his job. Not last year, but the year before that. When they got off to that 1-6 start, whatever it was, they turned it around, and they ended up finishing 9-8. And I've said this, they sent Aaron Rodgers packing to New York. And that carried over into last year, and the Lions were one of the best teams. And like I said, they were on the doorstep of making it to the Super Bowl. And should have gotten to it. But that was not the case. And they have expectations for themselves. And Dan Campbell said it in a unique way. He said, I want the whole enchilada. They want to get to the dance. Well, the dance is, I guess the dance is the playoffs. But yeah, they want to get past that. They want to get to, I guess you could say, the last dance, which is the Super Bowl. And they want to be the last team standing. And they have a great opportunity to do that. One thing I'll mention is Jahmyr Gibbs is dealing with a little bit of an injury, but it shouldn't be something that we take too seriously. And again, it's only June, but I know that was one thing I wanted to throw in because I know that was being reported. But yeah, they got a great opportunity. They got a great team. They got a solid quarterback. They got one of the best receivers in the NFL. One of the more underrated receivers in the NFL, I might add, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got a great 1-2 punch with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. You got a solid tight end going into his second season in Sam Laporta. And you got a rising star on defense in Aiden Hutchinson. Now, the defense is a little bit of an issue, which we'll see how they are this year. But this is a good team. And it's between them and the Packers, in my opinion, for the division. So, but yeah, I mean, I expect them to be very good once again. And I think they're going to be competing, with the Eagles and the 49ers for the 1 seed. That's going to be the order of 1 through 3, in my opinion. Because I think the Lions will win the division, and the Packers, they'll be a wild card. But yeah, and I think I said this recently. The South team is going to be the 4th seed. I know I'm saying this and it's only June 7th, but that's just my early opinion. And you know what? Here's the thing. With my predictions, whatever I say, maybe do the opposite. Well, it'll be funny when we get to the season and I start talking about how bad I'm doing in my spread pool. I'm looking forward to that. But we got some time before that. Me complaining about that and complaining about my fantasy teams. So, yeah, that'll be fun. But, I didn't even do that bad in my spread pool. It's just I didn't really, it's not like I won anything. So, but I'm hoping the Lions have another good year because I am a Dan Campbell fan. Ever since, the whole thing with, biting off people's kneecaps. I mean, that it's just, I thought it was funny, as many other people did. And the fact that from that press conference to where we are now, what he's been able to do and how they've just been able to change the culture and, give Lions fans something to be happy about. You also got to give credit to Jared Goff as well. I mean, I love where the Lions are at right now. It's nice to see that they are a, legit contender right now. A Super Bowl contender. Because of where they were at. I mean, they were one of the teams that have gone 0-16. And it was possible they were going to do that Dan Campbell's first season as head coach, but that didn't happen. I mean, look at where they are now. They're a very good team, and they're looking to go even further than they did last year, which is to get to the whole enchilada, and that's winning a Super Bowl championship. So that's my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think. How do you see the Lions doing? Do you see the Lions getting to the Super Bowl this year? Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we'll talk about another head coach that's trying to end a drought, and that is Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins. We'll talk about them when we come back from our final break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about another head coach and his recent comments, and that is Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins. So I think it's been 24 years since the Dolphins won their last playoff game, and the last time they won a playoff game, it was actually against Peyton Manning, a young Peyton Manning. So yeah, it's been a long time. And they're looking to end that. And to give Mike McDaniel credit, the Dolphins have made the playoffs the last 2 seasons. The problem is they did not win either of those games. And I thought we could all say that they played a better game against the Bills in the playoffs as opposed to the Chiefs. And that was when they had Skylar Thompson playing quarterback. They scored 31 points on the road against the Bills in that game. Well, there was a defensive touchdown in that game, and the Bills turned the ball over. So, yeah, the Bills kind of helped them out a little bit. But still, the Dolphins, they had a chance to win that game. But, I think we could all agree they really didn't have a chance against the Chiefs, in that weather. So, but, yeah, they're trying to end that drought. So this is what Mike McDaniel had to say recently. You get what you emphasize. Well, why not find ways to emphasize finishing in everything you do? Obsess about it. Why not have for half the offseason you're trying to have staff meetings at different times during the day? I had every staff meeting I put at like 7:24 or 3:24 or 5:24, the number 24. To you guys, it means nothing. That's how many years it's been since the organization has won a playoff game. We are going to hear about that come playoff time, you think. So to me, you do that to empower guys to know what's coming, to understand it, to not run from it. And we'll see if narratives are based upon past and hedging opinions moving forward. So to me, I think it's important to get in front of that, and I know what's coming for players that are going to experience it directly, and then leaning into that. I think it's hilarious to say, now that you have pressure on you in this business for the reason of, are you blindfolded with earplugs in? Like, dude, it's achieve now or watch out. Well, it's the same thing in regards to, hey, things have happened. Those 2 things. The last 2 seasons, the seasons have ended a certain way, and about 30 to 40% of the team were part of it. The other portion of the team wasn't. What can we learn from all this, and how do we adjust, and what we do now to hedge our bet then, and little things. You take whether it's a game or we need to finish the season better. He also said, let's go attack it, and let's go achieve something together. That's the reason why I bring it up, just because I know no matter how much I tell people to not listen, it's impossible not to hear the noise coming. There's always going to be noise. Whatever. Just address it, and let's do our jobs deliberately and with the mindfulness today that can be applied in the future. And he said, when I got hired, another thing he said, when I got hired, I said it in my first team meeting. It was 22 years at the time. Just because, you don't hire someone for moderate success or failure or anything. You hire them to win, and I know we have to do that. Nothing has really changed. I don't feel pressure that way because I feel way enough pressure having the job in general. I don't need any. There's not any more to do or any more to. You're hired for a reason, and you understand that, and you're trying to help be a part, facilitate, and be a part of a team that can succeed in the failures of the previous 22 or 24 seasons. I knew what I was signing up for with this job. So he had a lot to say, a lot of interesting stuff. See, it's funny because you got Dan Campbell, some of the things he says, and then you got, Mike McDaniel. They both have different styles, but it's just it's funny like having like back-to-back segments of these 2 guys. Because you got Mike McDaniel, who's very like cheesy and, well, I don't know. Well, is he cheesy? I don't know. I don't know. What's like the right word to describe him? Quirky, I guess. Because then you got Dan Campbell, who's, I just told you how he brought up Ron Burgundy and, wanted the whole enchilada. It's just, it's funny. But look, Mike McDaniel has not won a playoff game, and I think he is a good coach. I think the Dolphins do have a lot of talent on their team. But yeah, they haven't been successful recently. And I think he's using the playoff drought as motivation. And I think, you want to find ways to motivate your players. And yeah, it's true that, you could try your best to block out the noise, the outside noise of whatever may be going on, but it's going to be hard to just completely suppress it. And yeah, that's what they're going to hear about. And on top of that, last year they did have a good year, but if you get into the specifics of it, they had trouble against teams with winning records, and they ended up losing in the playoffs. They choked away the division to the Bills. They could have had the 2 seed. They lost that. And then they ended up playing the Chiefs, and they really never had a chance in that game. But those are the teams that you're going to have to beat if you're going to want to go far. I think their first objective, because that's really what this is about, is ending the playoff drought. Just winning a playoff game. And can they do that this year? Well, this upcoming season. I think they definitely can. But they got to go out there and prove it. Now, I had them ranked third. I know I keep bringing this up. I had them ranked third in my AFC East rankings. But that does not mean that this team cannot make the playoffs. This team can make the playoffs, but it's going to be as a wild card team. So, yeah, it's really going to be tough when we get closer to the regular season, and I got to, when I do my predictions on, who's making the playoffs and who's not. Because there's teams I look at, I'm like, oh yeah, the Browns, I think I could see them making the playoffs, and the Steelers, I could see them making it in as like the last wild card team, and you got the Ravens and the Bengals battling it out for the division, and then you got the Dolphins and the Bills and the Jets. I think they could be playoff team. There's so many teams that I could look at and say, yeah, I think this team can make the playoffs. I think this team, but there's only 3 wild card teams. So, the Dolphins have to get to the playoffs, and then we go from there and see who they match up against. But yeah, I mean, Mike McDaniel. That was a lot that Mike McDaniel had to say. When he's starting meetings at these particular times, because with 24s, yeah, he wants to put in everybody's heads like, hey, this is how long it's been since this organization has won a playoff game. We want to end that this year. They've gotten to the playoffs the last 2 seasons, but they have nothing to show for it. They are emphasizing like, hey, we got to do it this year. And I'm curious to see what will happen if they don't make the playoffs. Like, is Mike McDaniel gone? I think Mike McDaniel's a good coach, but got nothing to show for it in the playoffs. So, and I think and I haven't mentioned the quarterback because I think that's part of it too. I don't think Tua is the long-term answer. I think Tua has put up solid numbers, but again, I think he's holding the Dolphins back. And I think they got to. And it was interesting because we did have this conversation about Tua in one of our production meetings. I forget, was it yesterday or the day before? It was either yesterday or the day before. But a point was brought up like, hey, maybe the Dolphins, it's obviously it's unique that this happened, but you had Brock Purdy come in for the 49ers, and they've been able to make it to back-to-back NFC Championship games and made it to a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, with the 7th-round pick. Maybe, if the Dolphins go in a different direction, maybe they find that diamond in the rough, and that quarterback takes over, and they go further with him. But I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. I'm not saying that's what the Dolphins are going to do. The Dolphins seem like they want to pay Tua, which I think is a mistake. But, when you go to the alternative, there's no, what quarterback is going to be available? A Dak Prescott, you're going to want to pay him to bring him in? I don't think Dak Prescott is a significant upgrade over Tua. I think Dak is probably better than Tua, but I don't think he's that much better, in my opinion. But I don't know. We'll see. But I thought that was just something interesting because, yeah, the playmakers around Tua, they elevate Tua. It's not the other way around. You want to have it the other way around, where you got a quarterback that's, you want it to be mutual. You want the quarterback to bring out the best in the receivers, and you want the receivers to bring out the best in the quarterback. You don't want it to be one-sided. Well, you don't want it to be one-sided when it comes to the receivers making the quarterback better. Because, I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes. And, I know Patrick Mahomes is, the best quarterback in the NFL. But, they traded away Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. And the first year without him, you had Juju Smith-Schuster and Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. I mean, yeah, you still have Travis Kelce. But, yeah, I mean, you don't have Hall of Fame receivers that he's throwing to. Receivers. Obviously, Travis Kelce plays tight end. First ballot Hall of Famer. But you know what I'm saying. With Tua, I mean, you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They have to elevate Tua. It's just, but that's my opinion on it. I mean, we'll see if the Dolphins are able to end the playoff drought. But I think it's gonna be tough because the conference is a gauntlet. So I'm gonna leave it at that. So let me know what you guys think. Will the Dolphins finally end their playoff drought this season? Will they win a playoff game? Let me know. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows. And like I said, I'll be guest starring on the Chip Shot Football Podcast later in the day. So make sure to check that out. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure to check that out. Check out all the other shows. And yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. Like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again on Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. Take care and have a good weekend.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn.